Okay, I just want to make a little reference to what could be spiritual bypassing. So a bit more on spiritual bypassing and what I might call the data field, or the field of data. So phenomena that is not a part. It could be a burden, but it could also not be a burden. It could be useful. It's just data, and I think this speaks very much to the intellectual world. Text phenomena, crystallized memory, just data, cold logic, just phenomena. It could align with Carl Rogers's idea of I was thinking the phenomenal field, but I think I'm more thinking of the conditions of worth, the entwined conditions of worth that has been embedded in people. So it's phenomena that is not the person. It's not the self energy. It's not the self. It's not a part. It's just data. So and people form identities, their persona, their projection to the world of who they are, as though that is who they are, when it's stuff they've learned, it's stuff that they've taken on board. It's the show. It's not them. And it can be very, very convincing. It can put on a fantastic show, and some of these people or these parts that do this can be immensely likable, and they're probably at the same time the most removed from self-energy, and that's an interesting thing, to consider, narcissistic parts. Who isn't a narcissist? We live in a narcissistic culture. It's healthy to be in relationship to narcissism, not be narcissism. To be aware of that, to have that self-awareness, and to consider that the idea that the psychopath is probably the most liked person about you, and they say that a psychopath is usually one or two of them in your circle. They're the most successful and liked people, socially liked. It's quite a skill to really put yourself out there and develop a persona. And if you're an IFS therapist, you're probably aware that helping someone unblend from their identity is a biggie. It's a big one. And it depends how well that's served them as well. If how effective that identity projection has been for them. So it's a very interesting thing, and I'll put a little thing in the description. I was just thinking about how the power of bypassing in that context, the illusions and delusions, and how tricky this can actually become, and it is. So in the description, I'll put something about false self leadership, and just I think it's worth being aware of. We we measure, self energy, and so therefore we need to be aware of what isn't self energy, and parts that convince us that it's self energy when it's actually not. I'm just curious about this, and obviously they're very useful protectors for people to do so well in life, and and if that isn't authentic and it's not really genuine, that would explain a lot why we need therapy so much in our culture. That removed aspect from our authenticity, and considering IFS is a logical construct in a sense, from systemic thinking, systemic ideas, formulated a model, and then it attached itself to the third wave, the Eastern influence of mindfulness, and bringing in self-energy and the Dharma. There's a need to do that. There's been a need to kind of maybe catch up with the wisdom of the East. I'm just curious about this, and just going to drop this here as a little note and maybe think about it some more. Cheers.